You ready?
Hey.
Hey, I was trying to wait for you to look up, but you kept looking down.
Oh no, I was looking down because I was.
Good
Yeah.
afternoon. How are you, sir? How are you doing,
I'm
Doc?
wonderful. How art thou?
I'm cool. I'm cool, ready to, get into the things of the things and talk about some things.
Talk about some things. I hear you.
Yes. Well, we have before we get into the things of the things, we have a couple of we got a couple of new subscribers. So thank you to the new subscribers.
Hey, no people.
I hope y'all are joining us right now. But if you're not and you're just joining us on the replay gang, just welcome, welcome, welcome. And, cop a squat, We don't have assigned seats in this classroom. You just got to get here early and get to the front. Okay.
Unless you act up, and then we
You're
might
going to
have to get you.
have right. In case you act up, then I might have to put you next to the teacher. Okay. You're new. Yeah, right, Lamar. Hey, Cams. Hey, Lamar. How y'all doing? So
Hey,
we're going to
Cam. Hey, everybody.
Hey, you guys. So we're going to jump into some things of the things. Sort of have like an update to a story we've been talking about. I feel like we've been talking about the last couple of episodes. That story has sort of come up. You want to start with the cafeteria worker story and then work our way up to the
Yeah.
to our one of our favorite states. You subscribed yesterday? Oh, well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I feel like you already were here, but if you weren't, Lamar, thank you for coming. I know, Lamar, you are a faithful subscriber on my main channel, so that's why I said that. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at something. Okay, let's roll into it. As always, the links to these articles are in the description box, and I'll drop them in the chat as well. Um, all right, El Teddy, my eyes have been acting up today, so bear
You
with.
need me to read? Do I need to read the
No,
article?
I think I got it right now. I'll let you know if it's a problem. Food crisis. Okay, here it is. So this is the article. It is coming from K through 12 Dive. It was published on March the 4th. Oh, by Arnie Duncan. I have my feelings.
Oh, look at you.
We're gonna move on though. All right. This is an opinion piece. Food crisis in school cafeterias is a wake-up call for the USDA. A former U.S. Secretary of Education and a San Francisco district nutrition leader make the case for universal meals and greater school food support. Students learning in classrooms with in-person instruction is a welcome reprieve for many families across the country. At home, however, American families are paying more for groceries, gas, and housing. Food prices have climbed to their highest since 2011, according to a recent U.S. index. Inflation, along with supply and labor chain shortages, are persistent remnants of a pandemic that has impacted all sectors of our working economy. Unfortunately, schools are not immune to these economic pressures, and our nation's most underserved students, the ones who rely on schools as a key source of daily nutrition, are the ones who will stand to suffer the most as a result. Indeed, students continue to bear a disproportionate burden of the pandemic's impacts, including in the lunchroom. In light of the pandemic's economic fallout, the School Nutrition Association recently reported 70% of school meal programs have limited menu choices, and nearly half are experiencing reduced staff due to the ongoing impact of the pandemic. We know the lifelong benefits of consistent, nutritious meals for students: better academic performance, decreased obesity, decreased behavior issues, and more. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has made healthy school meals a priority with a recent announcement about moving toward higher nutrition standards for school meals. Yet, right now, schools are unable to secure many basic menu items or to get them into the hands of students in need. In light of the pandemic, school districts have received some relief from the mounting pressure to feed students amid short and long term absences, an increase in students qualifying for school meals, limited menu options, and soaring food costs. Um, this runs into like two or three articles. Um. Oh, I see where we're going with this. Okay. I'm gonna just drop down to the last two paragraphs. Combined with recent temporary adjustment to this year's reimbursement rate, schools and districts are equipped in the short term to navigate some of the obstacles to providing all kids with nutritious meals. But with more students being eligible to receive free meals at school and supply and staffing shortages persisting, the USDA's waivers and reimbursement adjustments are temporary fixes that leave many wondering how to plan for the coming school year. And this is why we have the opinion piece. It's time to take the Build Back Better approach and apply it to school feeding programs. We must take what we learned over the past two challenging years and apply those learnings to create long-term systematic improvements. Hey Cookie.
Hey, Vovo. Um, Here's my thing. I think that this is an issue that people don't think about. This is one of those silent issues that people don't even consider or think about. Excuse me.
Oh, bless you.
That people don't consider or think about when they're thinking about schools, education, and all of the things that surround public education. I mean, a lot of people who normally may not necessarily qualify for a free or reduced lunch probably are clamoring to get that free or reduced lunch now
Mhm.
simply because of the skyrocketing prices. With if we go to the grocery store right now and stuff a month ago that might have cost $3 might be $5 now. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
with inflation and everything happening, all of this stuff going up, a lot of people's salaries are not going up. And therefore that presents a problem when you're talking about not just whether or not this child is getting educated, but are they eating when they get there? And if they are is the school able to provide those students with proper meals or whatnot? And it's one thing for the USDA to say, "Oh, we have," in the U.S. Department of Education to say, "Oh, we have this list of meals and things that we want to see inside of the classroom, or not inside the classroom, but inside of the lunchroom." It's another thing when rubber hits the pavement, and now districts have to pay for this stuff and buy this stuff in mass. I'm not going to even say in bulk, in mass. And then what ends up happening is, can they afford this? Because while we're thinking about, when we think about monies allocated to school, we're thinking about, books and textbooks and classroom stuff. We forget an enormous amount and chunk of money is spent on feeding students every day. In most cases, I think it's still a national program. Correct me if I'm wrong. Really, lunch is still free, right? I mean, breakfast, I should say, is
Yeah.
still free.
Yeah.
That national program is still. Do you know how much money that takes? Just breakfast alone, not even including what it takes, because everybody doesn't eat breakfast, but everybody has a lunch, be it they bring their own or they're eating the lunch that the school provides. I just think that this is an issue as we see growing prices with food and goods that it takes to do lunches, that has gone silent, and that people really aren't considering. Like, I'm sure if you're a parent, you have. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm all here for improving the menu because absolutely I agree with everything as it relates to better nutrition, yada yada yada. But I also remember, and no disrespect, Michelle Obama, I love you, girl. But I remember when that was Michelle Obama's big initiative when she was first
And
lady.
you took them vending machines out of the teachers'
She
lounge, and
took
I
a lot
wanted
of
to
the
choke up.
Yeah, she took all the vending machines out the school. I mean, even out the teachers' lounge. What
Out
did I
the
do to you,
teachers' lounge.
Michelle?
We need
What did
this
I do
caffeine.
to you?
Right. It's caffeine.
Right.
Oh.
Like I get it. We can't and then, they can only the vending machines can only be on certain times of the day now and it's a lot of things and then they started bringing a lot more healthy food. Here's the problem.
Healthy food is expensive.
It's not just that healthy foods are expensive. The problem is when you have children who are eating unhealthy foods as a part of their regular diet, there has to be things in place that are teaching them, thank you, that are teaching them as far as eating. And what I mean by that is this: the average kid don't want a salad bar. And they were taking out these foods and they were bringing in salad bars and salads. Is a salad a good thing? It absolutely is. But were most of those salads ending up in the trash? Yes. So now you have something that's expensive and it's waste. You're wasting it. And so we have to figure out a way to do both at the same time. How do we educate our kids and encourage them to eat the healthy food while we're finding a cost-effective way of doing it? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I ain't saying there's anything wrong. Like our kids, like it bothers me when I see my kids' diet of hot Cheetos and soda and oodles and noodles, and you know what I mean. Like that's not a healthy diet. But if that's what they're eating all the time, then trying to throw in, these expensive, healthy meals, I just saw so much of it being wasted.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is too, just not even having sometimes exposure to some of these other food choices. And so you get to a point where if that's not something you know about or you have eaten before, you ain't willing to try it. You know what I'm saying? When your only decent meal of the day might be at school. I'm not willing. I know I'm like that when I eat. If I'm going out to eat, that ain't the time for me to be trying stuff. You know what I'm saying? If I'm
Right.
spending my money, I need to know. I know what I know. I know what my palate will take. I know what I like. Try this. No, I'm not trying that. So I can relate to that. And
Right.
so with students being people as well, I'm sure that is the case as also. I think that and if you take a look at a school budget, I would venture to tell you, you would be alarmed at the amount of that budget that actually goes to food, food services, and so forth.
Hmm.
That's in the. I think people have no idea the amount of money that actually has to go into that. But when you think about it, you think, yeah, that kind of makes sense because you're feeding literally millions of students 5 days a week.
Yeah.
That's
When
that's a lot of
when
money.
school first started, back, um, when school first started back, we were giving kids, we were calling it supper. So they were getting breakfast in the morning, lunch, and then every kid was getting, they called it supper on their way out the door, right? They stopped doing it. And this is countywide. They stopped doing it because the kids weren't taking the lunch. I mean, weren't taking the food. So again, it's being wasted. And these are some kids that probably legit, they don't have food at home.
Hmm.
Legit, maybe living in a shelter, but they weren't taking the free meal. So I think the other thing we need to look at, if we are really trying to create the environment like across the board, we need to look at bringing the community into this as far as the home, because the parents might take the meal knowing what it looks like at home, whereas the kids are like, I don't want to eat that. You know what I'm saying? I'll just eat the oodles and noodles. Whereas mom and dad are probably like, I wish they would take that free meal. So
I mean, I wonder. I remember when, at least when I was in high school, not so much elementary and middle school, but when I was in high school, I vividly remember there were several vendors that sold stuff during lunch. Now you still had the free lunch that people got, but we had like Subway, we had uh Pizza Hut. We had, different, vendors that would come in. Now I know in post Michelle Obama, we may not have those options, maybe Subway, but my point being, I wonder if they can partner with some of these vendors that kids may be more likely to say, okay, I'll pick a sub from Subway or something like that. Maybe offer them tax write-offs or some type of subsidy or something that will benefit the vendor as well, so that you will get more participation from said students, and we won't continue to have those problems.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a problem.
And I
I don't know.
understand the I mean the concern in this article, but I'm just saying on boots on the ground, you know, you first of all you want to make sure you're funding these programs, but you also want to make sure that the
It's not
kids that
wasteful.
the right it's we're not wasting it, you know. But and again, I don't want my words to be misconstrued. I am supportive of healthy eating, and I'm supportive of creating these environments for students. I want it to be impactful, you know. Cam said inflation is going to harm inner city schools quite a bit. Property taxes funding school budgets create such a unique playing field. You're absolutely correct. And like El Teddy just said, when it's this is the time of year where principals are finessing those budgets for next year. The process is starting. They're looking at staffing. They're looking at
Hmm.
enrollment, potential enrollment. Like all of those conversations are starting now. And though that's it's a landmine. The budget is a land. I don't even if you're in even in the most affluent districts, it's always a landmine because the money doesn't always trickle down
The
to
other
the
part
local
of that
school
is
budget.
too, you got to really look at the state by state scenarios for that, because I've seen states where the um, the state funds is dictated by the millage prices and the actual taxes that go into that. So there are certain supplements that the states will have already built into the system to make up for whatever uh, is not gotten through property taxes, so forth and so on. Because let's just be clear, if you're in certain areas, property taxes and the millage prices alone will not um,
Mhm.
fund what is needed for the school. And that's where not
Exactly.
only the state come in, but also those federal dollars that also come in to supplement those funds as well. So there's absolutely, um, like you said, inequities, Kev, but that's where the feds is supposed to come in and kick in, and be it the Title I funds,
Mhm.
be it and all. There are so many other methods and financial ways with which to get funds there.
Exactly. Born Earth said at my previous school, the kids were forced to take two items from the salad bar, but most of them were just throwing it away. Not to mention, who really wants food from a salad bar after elementary school kids have picked through it? It's not very appealing. So were you at like a middle school where the kids had lunch right, like one right at like a campus? We had elementary and middle school. But you're absolutely correct. And again, I saw that at the school where I worked. We had a vendor that bought in the packaged lunches, and they brought in salads and healthy, and literally the kids would take it out of the people's hand and literally put it in the trash because like you said, we forced them to take one. They had to get in line and take one, or they weren't even trying it. They weren't even opening it up. And it would even be different if they would open it up and kind of pick through it and throw some of it away. They literally were, thank you, boom. And it was like, and so that's when I was at a charter school, and so that was a different situation anyway. Um, I'm from the lovely state of Alabama, where the education budget is rated often for the general fund. Well, listen, that's another listen. We could do a whole show
Whole
on
nother
budget.
show
We could do
about
a
budgeting. We said we were going to do
woo.
a budgeting show one time. I don't think we've done one yet, but
No, we haven't done a
budgeting,
budgeted show.
budgeting in for education is just a behemoth. Just oh my God, you could only imagine.
Well,
Only
and
imagine.
I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna move on to the next story. When we first started the teacher project, we had this great idea of each show would have a different topic, and we did that for like the first three topics, and then the world shut down, and our whole shift sort of changed. So maybe we need to kind of look at that again. Of like,
Hmm.
even though we still bringing our articles in, maybe look at okay, well, we're gonna do these instead of four articles, we'll do two articles, and then we'll spend a lot of time talking about a particular subject, and we can do a budgeting show because baby. We could do a whole that could be a three-part series. Okay. Um And just in case you're listening to us on the replay or on the podcast, Apple or Google Play
Hey, podcast
platform.
people.
Hey,
Hey.
podcast people, if you want to join the conversation in real time, come on over to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Teacher Project 2.0 on YouTube, and set the notification bell. And so when we go live, you can join us in the chat and you can join the conversation just like all of our faithful followers that are here right now. Cams and Born Earth and China White and Carolyn Alexander, Vovo, Lock Queen, the artist,
Willie.
Lamar,
I'm going to always call you Willie.
Willie, and Quintessential, who is not, she's not here right now, but Quintessential always tweets us out and shares us on her
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn.
Shout
So,
out to Quintessential.
Dr. Quintessential. All right.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the State of the Union. You want to do that one next?
Sure.
All right. So for the state, and I'll drop these links in the chat. I'll do it while El Teddy's responding. After I read this.
Do I
So,
need to read or you need to read? Do you want me to read while you're dropping links?
you can. Like I said, y'all been my eyes have been giving me some trouble today. Let's just pray that there's nothing serious. Go ahead.
All right. This article comes from K through 12 Dive, a wonderful site for K through 12 news. It says 4 priorities for K-12 in Biden's first State of the Union address. Student mental health was a significant focus among the school initiatives mentioned during Biden's speech. As President Joe Biden addressed the nation Tuesday night in his first State of the Union speech, he briefly touched on several K through 12 initiatives, including improving children's mental health, expanding early childhood education, and addressing pandemic-related learning loss. It is significant that social, emotional health, and mental well-being were identified as national priorities under the Biden administration during this important high-profile speech, said Matthew Kraft, an associate professor of education and economics at Brown University. Quote, education doesn't always rise to the top of the many issues that a president wants to flag in their limited time. So I think that's very meaningful, Kraft said. The 2 years hit students and teachers hard after COVID-19 temporarily shut down in person learning, causing students to rely on remote learning and be socially distant. In October, the American Academy of Pediatrics and other organizations declared a national emergency in children's mental health caused by prior challenges worsened by the pandemic. At the beginning of Biden's speech, U.S. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona tweeted, "What is needed to help students grow and heal from the pandemic's challenges?" And his tweet was, to truly heal, learn, and grow together, we must address students' social, emotional, and mental health needs. The pandemic caused significant problems, but we have the resources and strength to build back better and help our children grow. I noticed they're using that language. Let me let me
I
let me
noticed that too.
I'm gonna
I
keep it
noticed that
moving.
too.
With districts continuing to juggle staffing shortages and a youth mental health crisis on top of learning loss, Biden highlighted 4 K through 12 priorities for the nation moving forward. Let me list what those are again. They were student mental health, social media, um, early childhood education investments, and learning loss. Those were the 4 big things that he spoke of. The article goes into more detail about those 4, but those are pretty much the big 4 that he addressed in his State of the Union. Are you one of those history teachers that forces your students to watch the State of the Union?
I used to.
I do in my AP Lang class because it's nonfiction and they can go through all of the rhetorical devices. I usually have them do a little a rhetorical analysis, I should say, on the speech and break down all of the rhetorical devices and stuff.
I used to, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't this year for a variety of reasons.
Mm.
Um, I used to. Now we just kind of, to be honest, we just kind of hit the highlights. We kind of do the highlights of it. So, as someone who's still in the school, let me say this about what Biden said. It sounds really good.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
The problem is on a local level. For example, let's talk about social media. Social media has been a very negative influence on what happens in the day-to-day dealings of the school. I cannot tell you how many fights and conflicts that we deal with in the school that start on social media and spill over. So when you start talking about how do we deal with things that are happening on social media, now you have to get into changing policy at the local school level. Because most code of conduct, and you know this, El Teddy, most school policies or code of conducts do not include language as it pertains to social media. So now we have to change it so that we can put things in place. Because if not, you know, like I know, the parents are going to come down and say, well, that happened off school property, or that didn't happen here. But if it spills over into the school, now we're dealing with the backlash. Same thing with, I'll use social media again as an example with the kids and their phones. The phone is a mini computer and it can be used for great reasons, but again, we're dealing with so many issues of these kids literally just being addicted to being on their phone, and it's such a disruption with the phones that, yes, you at the State of the Union saying these are the things we need to address, great. How does that trickle down to the day-to-day functioning of the school is the question.
I think when he mentioned social media, it was so reckless. They mentioned in the article what he said. He said, quote, children were also struggling before the pandemic, bullying, violence, trauma, and the harms of social media. We must hold social media platforms accountable for the national experiment they're conducting on our children for profit. And listening to that, I'm like, what? Like, I, that's that is nothing but just fodder that could just be thrown out there because you clearly can't say that you're about to go to these social media platforms and say, oh, you're accountable because this child said such and such or did such and such on social media. I don't see how you're going to be able to do that or enforce that and get away with it. So that was reckless for him to even say or even entertain and put out there into the atmosphere. The other part is, while it sounds good to talk about the mental health aspect, we know really be when rubber hits the pavement, the resources are just not there. The money, the allocation of money and funds to address mental health and the actual personnel and people there is not there. School counselors, no disrespect to school counselors, but let's be clear, school counselors generally, not all the time, but most times are teachers out of the classroom who went and got a master's in counseling, meaning they've taken, classes and, coursework on a master's level that will give them certification and so forth in school counseling. Okay, great. But are they at the level of practitioners that are therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, and so forth who have gone through extensive um, uh, uh, educationing and practicing and stuff like that? Absolutely not. And even the ones who may have that type of background with their job work log and all of the other inane things that they end up being responsible for, they don't even have the time to focus on that whole mental health aspect of everything. So it sounds good saying, oh, we want to address mental health, but are you really going to be able to do that? Are you going to put the money in place? Is there going to be real and true personnel that's going to be on the ground and that's going to be in place to meet the needs of a student and their mental health issues? Even if it was to the point where you said, we don't have it here, but here's the here's a recommendation to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and here's a voucher. Because you can't just give them a recommendation to a mental health expert, but you have to be able to pay for it too. And so you say, here's a voucher. You can take this. It will give you 5 free sessions with this person. So that way, you truly do have people who can get help that they need. But we just don't see that.
And like you said, a lot of it comes down to the resources and hiring the people, putting the money in place. Because at the end of the day, so we talk about mental health. At the end of the day, the resources just aren't there at the schools. I hear what you're saying, El Teddy, but even on a local, even just within the school building in a day, if a kid says, hey, like I had a student who was dealing with anxiety, right? She felt comfortable with me, so she would come to me, but for whatever reason, she just her first period of the day, for whatever reason, she just could not get it together for first period. And she would come, I didn't have a first period class. She would come to me. I didn't have anywhere to refer her because I'm not a professional,
Hmm.
right? I can talk to you, I can hear what you have to say, but I don't know how to deal with anxiety on a professional level. Where do I refer her within the building? The school counselors, they don't have the time. They're dealing with schedules, they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with. We don't have the mental health people in the building on a day to day basis,
Right.
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And the teachers are not aware of who is in the building and when they're in the building. So, yes, all of those things are cool too, but what about the day to day? Again, it's real nice at the State of the Union, but are you allocating for get to the local school level that are specifically earmarked? This is to hire mental health counselors. This is
And
to, you know what I'm saying? Because the school psychologist, that ain't the answer. Because most
and
schools,
and that's like I said, really be that's why I think it may be easier for them to say, excuse me, say, hey, we may not have the personnel on the school side or here at the school building, but you know what? Here is the name of this
right,
therapist psychologist. You are to report there. They are expecting you. And this is the voucher that you take to them that's going to set you up for 5 free sessions or, however many sessions it's going to take. And they may, give them option to continue at a, lower rate or something like that. But it's got to be something that they can actually go to and make them responsible. Say, no, you got to get this form signed by this therapist.
mm-hmm. Right,
You mom, parent, here's the form. Go get this one of our licensed, one of our approved psychiatrists, the
mm-hmm.
psychologist, therapist that will social work or whoever that will sign off on this. It got to be from this and have that and pay for the number of sessions that's going to be needed. Otherwise, you're just blowing smoke in the air.
Exactly. And
And I
and
think too, really, beyond not to cut you off, I'm sorry. I
go ahead.
think in a lot of cases, especially when we have disciplinary actions, as opposed to just saying we finna just suspend this child outdoor, it should be immediately okay. Let's provide them with some of this mental health um, uh, that they need to work on their mental health. Even if it's you need to go to anger management. Here's the list of, places where you can go. You need to go work and sit down and talk with somebody about what's going on so we can have true corrective measures in place so that we can, have a change of action.
Right. And so that's the thing. And again, I don't want people to feel like we're just complaining, complaining, complaining. But the reality is these are always great ideas, which I'm not saying they aren't. I'm glad that these are priorities of his. I'm glad that he's saying, listen, I recognize that these are the things that we need in our schools. The question is, and this is what we've always stressed to you guys, is the Department of Education does not regulate schools. So, what are you going to do from a federal level to make sure that these resources get allocated on the local school level and they are absolutely earmarked for what they're supposed to be earmarked for? You know what I'm saying? And that's
Hmm.
because the other thing, the other priority he has here is loss of, basically, how does it word it? education loss. What is it? The last one. Hold on.
Um, the last one
Learning loss.
was
That's it. Learning loss.
learning loss. Yes.
And the reality is, and I have listen. I've said this since day one of the shutdown, and they'll tell you on my witness. I have said this since day one. Our kids are going to lose, and who is it going to affect the most? Is going to affect our kids the most,
Mm-hmm.
because the kids with the parents who have the resources are going to get their kids the tutoring. A lot of the kids were homeschooled long before the schools figured out we needed to start homeschooling and all of those different things, right? Yes, our kids lost pretty much a year and a half of school, of effective instruction. Yes, they were going through the motions, but effective instruction. Again, you saying it is great. What are we doing that's going to trickle down on a school level to address the fact that these kids lost? And here's the problem. And El Teddy, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Here's the problem. Nobody, and when I mean nobody, I mean nobody. I'm talking about from the from the principals to the school boards to the parents are really going to want to do what has to be done to address the fact that these kids lost a year and a half of instruction. And I'm going to tell you how I know. Because we teachers on the front lines are constantly being told that we need to figure out ways to help the kids pass, not address the fact that they don't have the skills, not address the fact that they aren't demonstrating mastery, but, well, what can you do to help them pass? That lets me know that nobody really wants to deal with the real issue of learning loss, because the reality is some of these kids just shouldn't go to the next grade. You understand what I'm saying? The reality is there should be some mandatory summer school programs and some mandatory after school programs, and nobody wants to do that.
And let's be clear, really. And what I'll say this: two things. One thing I've said to parents during open house or back to school night or whatever you want to call it that they have at the beginning of the school year. Every year I say the same thing to a parent. I say, listen, it takes 1 year for the learning curve to pass a child, and that affects that child for the rest of their life. 1 year. I give you a perfect example. A bad year in math in elementary school will have a person not liking math for the rest of their life, and
Facts.
will tell themselves that they're bad at math, but
Facts.
and not even try. And what we've effectively had is
Listen,
what we've
I was
effectively
crying
had.
until they started putting letters in there. When they started putting letters in math, I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Well, it's the same way with English too. But what we've effectively had is we've effectively had an entire nation of students that have lost a year
Yeah.
where the learning curve has passed them. And the other part that I want to mention is this. There are so many people, and even teachers disagree with me on this. There's so many people complaining about, oh, the online, the this, the that, and so forth is not good for them. This, that, and the third. Online instruction and virtual instruction
It's the
was
future.
here well before there was a pandemic,
Absolutely fact.
and it's going to be here perpetually now. And my point is, there has been successful education that has taken place virtually. The problem goes exactly back to what you said, really, B. The problem goes to wanting to pad stats, pad numbers, and not hold students accountable. And in some cases, the teachers accountable in how they choose to embrace the technology or choose to embrace the online learning and be innovative and creative in how they practice their craft. And on the other side, with the students being accountable to say, this is how I got to learn. Does that mean I got to read stuff online or interact with this material online more often? Yes, but that's not new for students. I say this all the time. Students learn all kinds of stuff online. We just talked about social media, and we just talked about how great they are using their phones, anything online and social media. But magically, when you come to school and I ask you to learn something that is also online or also done via technology, now you just become just stupid, and now you don't have the capacity to learn. There's that doesn't make sense. And so I think that, like you said, really be at some point somebody has to stop trying to make excuses for people and start making people accountable, saying this is what it is. This is how instruction has to take place. And we don't know that it's going to change in the very near future, even
Right.
when we go back into the classroom.
Right. Because again, like you said, virtual learning isn't ineffective. It was the way it was implemented across the majority of the school that wasn't effective. It wasn't treated as if it was real school, so kids didn't act like it was real school. It was treated as if, well, we're just going to patchwork this together until y'all can really go back to real school. It was
Hmm.
never true. So if you go into it with the mindset that this is the same as real school, the expectation is the same, it looks the same. Like for example, in our school district, and I understand why. I get it. But we couldn't even force the kids to turn their cameras on. I don't know who's on the other side of that camera. I don't know who I'm talking to. I went through all last school year not knowing what my kids looked like because we weren't even when we were virtual until what, April of last year, and then when we went back we were hybrid, and the majority of those kids could opt the parents could opt out of it. So only about, you remember I used to tell you I only had 4 or 5 kids that showed up every
Hmm.
day. So the majority of my kids were still on the computer behind a screen, behind an avatar. So I don't know these kids. And again, that might not sound like a big deal, but when we start talking about creating those interpersonal skills, that is a barrier to that, and so when we start talking about this is a real school environment, where you do that at?
Right, and the other part about that is, even if we go to, maybe let's go to spring 2020, where everybody was forced into virtual. You finish out that school year, where where the negligence, and educational malpractice came, is that summer of 2020, knowing that we're probably going to be virtual most of the next school year, if not all of the next school year. School boards, administrations didn't prepare, did not go into that summer of 2020 and said, let's effectively come up with a plan that's going to be able to have learning continue in this virtual manner. And I'm going to tell you why the other thing that makes it not equitable is, think about on your own respective job. Those jobs that ended up going virtual, guess what your boss still made you do? Be accountable for what you had to turn in, even if you were working from home. And you had to learn how to keep yourself and do whatever you needed to do to work from home. And if in education we are truly preparing students to go into the workforce and so forth, then we need to be able to hold them accountable, just like if you were on an online college, and you would still be accountable with it being virtual. Just like if you were at a job and your job went from being in office to being virtual, you still had to be accountable for whatever quotas you needed to reach, or whatever the assignment at your job was that you needed to do. And the same thing, but that doesn't happen. And then what's going to happen is, when these people get to the workforce, then they're not going to be able to adjust, or they're going to think that their bosses and management is out of line and out of control. And then you get the Chandrikas of the world. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that.
Well, that's just like, and I'm gonna use this example, and then we're gonna have to move on. But that's just like the conversation we were having the other day on my main channel, where we were talking about Candy's restaurant. You watched the show, so you know what I'm talking about. When we were talking about was that the girl named Chandrika?
Hmm.
When we were talking about Chandrika, and somebody in my chat, or not just somebody, a couple of people in my chat were like, well, he didn't have to send her home. He could have just gave her a warning. I mean, we're supposed to be coaching people up and da 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 da. And I was like, see, here's the problem. That's the problem right there. No,
Hmm.
you can coach somebody up on a skill, meaning, okay, if she's not grasping the actual concept of how to seat people, and she's messing up the seating arrangement, and she's messing up giving people the wrong time of how long they have to wait, that's something we can coach, because that's a skill that we need to work on. You understanding that you're supposed to be at work on time, you understanding that you can't talk to your boss crazy and be disrespectful. Say, I can't coach that. That's basic. And like you said, we are raising that generation of mindset to say, but I should always get a warning. I should always get a, well, we're going to talk to you about it. And there's never the consequence for the bad behavior. And that's the problem. Because I can tell you for a fact, last year, basically they weren't failing kids. It didn't, and they made no difference between the kid who showed up to virtual class and just couldn't quite get it together versus the kid who just never damn came. Right? So again, where's the consequence for the bad behavior for the kid who just never showed up? And that's part of the problem. We're raising a generation of participation trophies. But that's, again, we could go down that road, and that could be a whole nother story too. All right.
Another one.
All right. So our last two stories are sort of combined, and then we have our feel good moment. So we've been bringing you guys this story down in Florida with the say no to gay law. Is that what they're calling it? Say no to gay bill or something like that? Don't say gay bill. So let me read you guys this story. Florida students participate in massive walkout to protest the Don't Say Gay bill. This is coming from CNN, and this is from Monday, March the 7th. More than 500 students participated in a massive... I don't mean no harm, but I don't think 500 is massive in a school district like Miami-Dade, but okay. Walkout money in Winter Park High School in Orange County, Florida. Oh, that's not Miami-Dade, is it? Orange County?
No, Orange County is Orlando.
Okay.
That's Orlando area.
Okay. In protest of the Don't Say Gay bill currently being considered by the state Senate, according to walkout organizer and high school student Will Larkins. Let me not do that. I'm proud of these kids. Let me not poo-poo on what they did. I'm proud of them. The Parental Rights and Education Bill, HB 1557, would effectively ban teachers from discussing sexual orientation and gender identity in classrooms for young students. LGBTQ advocates say the measure would lead to further stigmatization of gay, lesbian, and transgender children, causing more bullying and suicides within an already marginalized community. The walkout was organized by juniors Will Larkins and Maddie Zornick. Several students left class at 9 a.m. to protest the bill. During the walkout, students were chanting "We Say Gay" and holding "Protect Trans Kids" signs. Winter Park High's walkout was not the first act of protest among Florida students. Several high schools across Florida also held walkouts, protests on Thursday and Friday. We wanted to show our government that this isn't going to stop. There were walkouts all last week. This is going to continue. If this passes, there will be protests everywhere, Larkins told CNN. We wanted to get the attention of our representatives, our senators, because the point is to show them that we're the ones in power. The people are the ones in power, and what they're doing doesn't represent us, especially marginalized groups. And it goes on to talk about how Larkins testified before the Senate committee. Ron DeSantis, a Republican, has signaled his support for the bill if approved by the Florida State Senate and signed. It would go into effect in July. You want me to go ahead and read the response, and then we can just talk about it at one time? Okay. So the other article, and this kind of goes hand in hand, DeSantis confronts reporter as students statewide protest Don't Say Gay bill. This is also coming from CNN. And this is dated, I don't see the date.
I think it was like today or yesterday. I think it was yesterday.
Okay. Students that organized a walkout at a high school in Florida speak out against the state recently passed Parental Rights and Education Bill, also known as the Don't Say Gay bill. DeSantis, wait a minute, hold on, y'all. It didn't open up the actual. Here it is right here. Sorry, it didn't open it. Here's his response. It's a video response, so I'm going to play it.
Get Comcast Business
Of course,
Security
it's a
Edge on the
commercial.
largest, fastest,
It's always a commercial.
to most small businesses.
Get started with a great offer and ask how to add
Oh,
Comcast Business
boy.
Security.
Sorry, y'all.
Plus, ask how to get up to an $800 prepaid card with a qualifying bundle.
Governor, House Bill asking on seven parental rights and education, what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill, is on the Senate.
Does it say that in the bill? Does it say that in the bill? I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill because you are pushing false narratives.
Okay. Lord, my phone.
We're going to make sure that parents are able to send their kid to kindergarten without having some of this stuff injected into their school curriculum.
Politics in Florida legislature right now is completely awful, targeting marginalized communities. We wanted to make noise about this bill and how harmful it is to our queer community.
This is a peaceful demonstration to show the Florida legislature that what they are doing does not represent us. Power to the people!
Seeing everything going on in the legislature right now, like as a Floridian, it's really scary. As a visibly queer person myself, it's been like really personal this time.
We just want to say that like the fight doesn't stop here. We'll always keep fighting for the rights. LGBTQ people deserve to have their history taught in classes the same way every other history deserves to be taught.
I'm gonna let you go, doctor, since that is your,
I'm at that point where I have to decide: do I spend the
Sorry.
My issue.
That's
Wow.
your stage child.
While it is laudable and great that these students are protesting, the problem is they may be protesting against it and their parents are backing it.
Yep, that's part of the problem.
There is the biggest problem. Y'all can feel how y'all want to feel, but at the end of the day, y'all are protesting and your parents are supporting. And your parents may tell you that they're protesting with you when on the back end, they're actually supporting the bill. And that's how we got here. The other part of the problem is, and I think this is not mentioned enough, and I will keep screaming this from the rooftops, especially specific to Florida. This is a bill to address a problem that's not there. This is a bill, even in Texas, to address a problem that is not there. You're grandstanding before a podium talking about what you don't want to happen in kindergarten is idiotic. Teachers have standards, a structured set of standards and benchmarks and things that they are allowed to teach. Lesson plans get approved. These things are seen. All of this stuff talking about, I don't want my kindergarten to learn, that's not happening. You don't have cases of this being brought up. They don't have one case of this being brought up in the entire state of Florida. Not one. These laws are being put in place as props and propaganda, and they will have long-lasting effects. It's a slippery slope. Just like last year, when Governor Death Sentence DeSantis had them pass the law against trans athletes in the state of Florida. And when they passed the law, FHSHA, Florida High School Athletics Association, reported that there were 0 complaints or reports about somebody complaining about transgender students competing in one sport. Mind you, at that time, you know how many transgender students had competed in any sport in the history of Florida high school sports? 1. And so they were creating laws that were props and propaganda that was throwing meat at rabid dogs to make political statements. And that is what this is. They're making laws for a problem that's not there. There's no teaching of this stuff even in 9 through 12. In a 9 through 12 class, let's just be clear. You ain't having all of this, teaching my child how to be LGBTQ. There's no time. The only course where you may have that is probably 2, or I could say 3. You may see it in maybe a history class if there's a historical event surrounding maybe that, like a Stonewall. Maybe they teach that, part of history. I could be reading a novel in English class, and this is on a 9 through 12 level now, where I might address those issues. Or even if I'm in a biology class, maybe we're teaching a section on human sexuality, and we may go through the breakdowns of, all of the different various, human sexualities that there are. Okay. But even then, those things have to be approved. You know what I'm saying? They have to go through all to make sure they align with the standards of that state. So you making laws saying don't, it's not happening. It's props. But the dangerous part about them doing this is it's a slippery slope. And now you are basically silencing, and like they said, inviting and invoking bullying and all types of other, problems where these kids get ostracized for no apparent reason. You're creating a problem that's not there.
Facts on facts on facts. I don't have anything to add to that. I think you addressed that very eloquently. I'm gonna say to the students, keep fighting, keep pushing, and we just gonna,
I could go all sugar spiky on this.
I know.
Kept it together today. So I'm gonna keep it together today.
So Lock Queen, I'm glad again. Not Lock Queen, I'm sorry. Crispies sent us the article. You guys, again, I can't stress enough. You email us teacherproject2.0@gmail.com. Go ahead and you email us articles, ideas, questions. And again, if you're an educator or just a concerned stakeholder and you want to join us, let us know. Reach out to us and we can make it happen. Okay. This is an open platform for us to have these conversations. Even if you disagree with us, come on up. I love to hear from you. Okay. So we did take your suggestion into consideration. We're gonna try to always end on a positive note. So our positive story for today is coming from I don't know why I didn't have it pulled up. Sorry, y'all. Here it is right here. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Crispies. Crispy sent us a Cash App. Thank you, Boo. I clicked on the wrong. I was like, wait a minute, what? Thank you for the Cash App. Thank you so much. It is so appreciated. All right. This is coming from Love B. Scott. Okay. And this is an article about Quinta Brunson. Quinta Brunson is the comedian, showrunner. Well, I'll read you the article and then you'll know who she is. Quinta Brunson redirected Abbott Elementary marketing money to buy school supplies for teachers. Now, if you guys are not familiar with the show, matter of fact, let me do it this way. I'm going to share the screen so you guys can see her because maybe you may not know who she is. If you guys are not watching Abbott Elementary, I highly recommend it. It was getting some pushback because they were saying, oh, she made Black educators, because they were complaining about the character of the principal. But as someone who has dealt with incompetence on that level, I was here for it. I'm fine with it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is what she looks like. If you guys watch Abbott Elementary School, Abbott Elementary, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But what you may not realize, you guys, is that she's not just the star of the show. She's actually the producer and showrunner and creator. So Brunson, 32, is a creator and showrunner for the hit ABC sitcom, revealed during a recent interview with NPR's Fresh Air that she shifted some of her show's marketing money to donate supplies to teachers. We chose to put the marketing money towards supplies for teachers, Brunson said, explaining that the production team and network agreed to reallocate some of the money. It's about being able to make those kinds of decisions that really excite me, that can really materially help people. Brunson also opened up about the inspiration behind her series, in which she stars as a second grade teacher at an under-resourced, predominantly black school in Philadelphia. She explained to Fresh Air that she has strong ties to the education system as the daughter of a teacher. The school in Abbott Elementary is not unlike the school where her own mother taught years ago. Despite it getting harder, despite teachers not having all the support they need, despite kids growing even more unruly than they've been in recent time, she still loved the job. Brunson said of her mom, "The beauty is someone being so resilient for a job that is so underpaid and so underappreciated because it makes them feel fulfilled." The comedian, who starred in a Black Lady sketch show before creating Abbott Elementary, also opened up about the special hidden meaning of her show's name. Brunson, she said, she christened the sitcom after a teacher who helped her out when she switched schools in the 6th grade. "I was scared to go into the real world, or what it looked like was the real world at the time, and Miss Abbott took me under her wing." She said of the educator, "She was an incredible teacher who put her all into it, making sure that her students felt special and were ready for the world." Brunson has formed her own special bond with the children she works with on Abbott Elementary. In an adorable video posted on Twitter Tuesday, she filmed the actors who play her students on TV saying goodbye to her as the show went on hiatus. In the cute clip, which has been viewed over 1.6 million times, some of the kids addressed her as Miss Teagues, her name, her Abbott Elementary character, and told her, "See you on Monday." So, you guys, again, we're mixing in a little bit of hooray, hooray with a little bit of Black girl magic on this one. But I love Abbott Elementary. I think it is absolutely hilarious. If anybody wants, and here's what I think is funny when people talk about, "Oh, that's just not realistic." Okay, I don't know where you this, and that's the problem. People think that that's not realistic, and it is. Is there some comedic relief in there? Sure, but I'm gonna say, and you tell me, El Teddy, I'm gonna say about 90 to 95% of what we see is real.
I just want to see a version on the high school level, because there are certain things on
Yeah.
the elementary level that isn't the same as because if y'all saw, no, don't do high school. No, what you do is middle school, because that is where
Middle
y'all
school
would
is a
listen.
whole nother level.
Y'all have no idea of the train wreck that the education system can be until you go to a middle school. You see the kids at their worst. You see teachers just frustrated
I
to no
taught in
end.
middle school for 10 years.
Listen,
Baby.
I taught in the middle school. I taught in middle school for about what, 6? No, more than that. Anyway.
Yeah, trust me,
Yeah.
it's a whole nother world. You know what? I like the way you said that, Cam. Talking about the Say Gay bill. Cam said the bill is a solution in search of a problem. I like the way you worded
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. But I love this story. I'm glad that she's doing that and giving back, paying it forward, actually, being a part of the solution, not just highlighting the problems, but also being a part of helping to try to find a solution to said problem. So yeah, great stuff.
All right. I'm gonna. Oh shoot. We get ready to shut it down, you guys. We try to keep it to an hour. It's been an hour and 4 whole minutes. But I want to thank you guys for being here. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Share with your friends, colleagues, foes, educators in your family, all of those wonderful people. And again, thank you for being here. And I'm going to be quiet and let the doctor close us out.
I don't think I have any more to say. We're so glad to be here. We'll be back, next week to bring you guys more. 2 weeks.
No, I was just saying.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, we're going on hiatus too. Okay.
No.
But we'll be back next week to bring you all more at the Teacher Product. Once again, shout out to all of our podcast people. We don't want to neglect you either. Hey, podcasters and stuff like that. And stuff. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out mods for looking out. And that's all I got.
All right. Peace.
Bye-bye.